Well, welcome everyone to the Women of Sumo session at Illuminate. We will be discussing today a very important topic, how women can advance their careers in STEM, and also touch on how all of us can help with this movement. So I'll start with myself. My name is Dion Hedgepeth. I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at Sumo Logic. A little bit about myself. Let's see, I've been in high tech for almost 30 years. I have a computer engineering degree. Started off as a developer, but have actually really morphed my career really to spend time with customers, employees, and making critical business decisions to help companies grow. And there are just so many different paths, different types of careers in STEM. And so I'm really passionate about encouraging women to take this path. So super humble today to moderate such an impressive group of successful women who have so much to share with you all. You're going to love this panel today. So one, I encourage all of you in the audience to ask questions in the chat, and we will make sure we leave time at the end to answer some of these. So with that, let's get into it and start with introductions. So we'll just go left to right on the slide here. Just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role today. So Beth, let's start with you.
Good morning. Have to unmute before you start talking.
Yeah.
It's nice to be with everyone. Thanks, Dion, for the opportunity. Beth Weeks. I'm based in Austin, Texas. I work as the CIO and SVP of Product Development at PlanView, and we're a company that has a portfolio of products that helps really connect the business units together, from innovation through strategy, through all of your initiatives, down to the project management and executing and delivering on those initiatives. Started out as a developer, much like Dion, and moved into a leadership role, been in the industry, software industry, 5 different companies for the last 36 years. And it's just a pleasure to be here. And I am a Sumo Logic customer and a dear friend of Dion, and appreciate the opportunity to join this panel. And this is definitely my passion, STEM and the next generation. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Beth. Lisa.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. I'm Lisa Hammett, and I have the pleasure of serving as an advisor to Sumo Logic. I have been pretty much what I would call at it, solving the problem of AI for 30 years. By background, it's fairly eclectic, a lot of math, a lot of science, but fell into AI mainly through technical disciplines, and then now have moved on to boardship, chairwomanship on boards. And what I would say is about STEM is that I have made decisions as to where I will focus to try to solve this problem, that we simply do not have enough women in technology. And that's hurting the industry overall. So it's not anymore something that you just ought to do. It's something you've got to do if we're to remain competitive. So anxious to talk with all of you today and share the expertise of this incredible panel as we all tackle that important problem.
Love it. Thanks, Lisa. Great. Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen Kane. My pronouns are she, her. For the visually impaired, I am a white woman with dark, short hair and square glasses, and I'm wearing a white shirt today. I lead the inclusion and diversity efforts for Informatica. We're a software company that's been enabling our customers to realize the power of their data for about 28 years now. I've been at the company almost 6 years. And my start in this world was, in the STEM world, was organizational behavior. I'm actually the person who keeps the tech people organized and moving forward. So there are many different paths in STEM you can take. And so one of them for me was organizational health and diversity and things like that. So I'm very passionate about STEM as well, and really thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Great. Margaret.
My name is Margaret Francis. I'm the president and COO of Armory at present. And Armory is a commercial open source software company. We create an enterprise distribution of a project called Spinnaker that's all about continuous delivery, pushing all your artifacts and your images out to your virtual machines in the cloud. I'm also a board director for Sumo Logic. I've long known the company and its products and used them in many different times and places. And I have founded a couple of venture-backed software companies and taken one public. And before this, I used to run Heroku. I have a strong affinity for line developers who are trying to make a life and a business out of their work.
Great. Thanks, Margaret. Awesome. Well, let's get into it. So I think what I would like to do is really start with the why. So why does this topic matter today? And really, would our world be different if more women worked in STEM? Actually, Margaret, love to start off with you and get your perspective here.
I'd be delighted. Honestly, there's two main reasons. I think we talk about the presence of underrepresented groups of all types in STEM. Today, we're focusing on the topic of women. And one set of reasons is around whether it's the right thing to do, whether it's the moral and ethical thing to do in this world, which, in my opinion, it clearly is. We are looking to build a world in which all people are able to create a living for themselves, doing the kinds of work that they love and support themselves and their families. And that should not be a world in which, your identity presupposes your ability to do so in the field of your choice. It should not be that world. So there's a very ethical reason to talk about this. And there's a very commercial reason to do this, which is simply that you actually, in STEM in particular, you make better products, you make different products, they serve the world differently when you have a fairly diverse set of people actually hacking on them together. And when we were talking, about products that really have changed the world because they look at things differently, one of my favorites today is WhatsApp, because WhatsApp was so specifically designed for people who have different technical infrastructure than I do sitting here in San Francisco. Like, this is the most privileged of all places to live, from a telecommunications place. And everyone I know has an iPhone almost, in the zip code, not in my life, but in the zip code. Like, I could FaceTime them. That is not possible for all the people that I talk to using WhatsApp, and all the family members I stay in touch with who live in very different geographies and with very different physical setups. And I'll just note, when COVID-19 hit, we had an enormous challenge keeping a lot of our developers and teammates who were in other geographies productive working from home. The idea that they would all have space, a desk and a chair and the connectivity and the equipment to just keep on working, while society changed around them was a very privileged view to take. And it is one that I think calls for new kinds of products and new kinds of services in the world that enable productivity in a more distributed way. So I'd love to hear what some of the other panelists think are important reasons for us to be considering this topic. But I think a lot of women out there were pushing code from the kitchen counter, for the last 18 months.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Lisa, I'd love to hear from you next, just given all of your experience and the work you do with quantum physics, AI, and science.
So I'd love to play a role on this panel today as kind of bringing the voice of technology here. And what I will, remind everybody is that the cloud has been really transformative. We can't deny that. It has had two pretty significant shortcomings. One has been obviously the security breaches that we've all been victim to over the last few years. The second one hits me very personally, which is the limited nature of AI. You see, the AI discipline has been thwarted, believe it or not, by cloud computing. And there's a whole topic on that in and of itself. But where we find ourselves today, where we're now at the threshold of the fourth turning, which is our next wave of technology, we need to get into much more high stakes AI. So AI is now transforming into something where we can't deal with error rates that we've dealt with in the past. It has to be a lot more precise. It has to be a lot more exact. And so for that discipline to go forward, we need very creative thinkers in the discipline. It cannot be the same people that we've pushed through the graduate programs over the last 50 years. And so what women bring to the field in particular, because we're focused on women here, there's a lot of different groups that bring a lot of different talents, but given our topic today is on women, what women bring to the field is that specifically the way the brain works in the women is that things cross the corpus callosum with greatest ease. And it makes our thinking far more spatial, and it makes our ability to solve nonlinear programs. So we have to get to this next phase for the whole of humanity. And so we're going to have to be bringing women into this discipline with a great deal of excitement. So what that's meant for me in terms of where I've focused my efforts is I am a guest lecturer at high school and middle school math classes, and I teach them. And I find that in 6th grade, that's the great branching off between girls and boys in terms of mathematics. And it's super important that girls know that they have an unfair advantage in honors algebra. They actually do, particularly when we get into linear algebra. And so I've made it a real focus to get more collaboration from the girls in 6th grade. And then when, of course, we get older and women leave the workforce, which they often do because of personal decisions, I've really been spearheading programs at Visa, at IBM, at Salesforce, where we hire returner women back into the workforce and retool them and retrain them, because we certainly can do that, right? And we found that women have been unbelievably transformative to our businesses when we do that, and the ROI speaks to it. So for AI, it's just, it really is something that is so obvious. The answer is right in front of us, and we just need more people amplifying it.
Yeah, I mean, wow, your perspective on the why is so powerful. And you touched a little bit about this on this as well, right? Like in order for us, we know why now. It's extremely important, why diversity matters, creativity of thought, the precision, all the things we need to do differently. You know, you touched on the how a little bit, which is, right, starting early, right? So how do we get women in the pipeline earlier? What are the things we need to do? I'd love to kind of shift to that as well next. Maybe Beth, I mean, or Lisa, I know you guys have a perspective, because I know, Beth, you do a lot of volunteering and this is a passion of yours as well, but thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Just to really expand on Lisa's ideas and thoughts, I mean, we have to really be thoughtful and engage at all ages and levels. As Lisa indicated, it starts very early in their elementary education. You know, it's great to see that, for example, the toy industry has embraced thinking about how to make toys more interesting for females in STEM. That's a great initiative. But if you look at around you, some actionable things are many universities offer a day, girl day in engineering. It's called many things, but giving, volunteering for that. I've done that, and just seeing how exposing these young women to engineering principles and showing it's fun and it letting them explore and be curious has been awesome. Then when we move into that high school years, to me, this is where we need to be modeling what it's like to work in engineering. So on numerous occasions, I've hosted high school students, women and young men, into my business to let them see how the software industry works. And it's been amazing. I've had young women who are very strong in math and science walk away from that week going, wow, Miss Weeks, I had no idea what it was really like and how fun it could be to work in the computer science and the software industry. And then when you get to college, you know, if they have stayed engaged this long and they've chosen to major in an engineering discipline, we absolutely have to engage there. And there are lots of mentoring opportunities and programs within the universities that we need to provide the encouragement and give them self-confidence that they can do this. As females, and I can relate to this very easily, we have a fear of failure and we want to be perfect. And so as you enter into these engineering disciplines and programs, let's all face it, it is hard and you're going to be tested. You're likely going to face fear and failure along the way. So encouraging, mentoring, encouraging them to pursue that. Then once they get into the career, we've got them, that's great. We're starting to expand the industry with more females. We also have to continue mentoring and encouraging as they go into their careers, they're facing new challenges there. And then mentoring into, you know, the leadership roles, it just goes all along their career. We all need help and encouragement along the way to stay engaged and to really open up the possibilities for these young women. Just to share a small story, I have a niece who she took one of the aptitude tests early in high school and it came back she should be an engineer. And her response to me was, Aunt Beth, I don't know if I want to be an engineer. And that building bridges, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know, they just don't understand the possibilities of what that really means. And so we've got to encourage them and give them that exposure.
Yeah, I think people sometimes think of engineering means you're like working in a dark room with no window, right? Like, and it's just not the case, as we can all attest to in our careers here. Anyone else want to add something?
I was just glad that Beth said fun. You know, I actually, I kind of like this industry. I kind of like what I do. I think that it is, it's great to be, if you have that intellectual engagement and a sense of accomplishment around what you do, that Beth, I think you alluded to, can be harder, you know, potentially for women than for men. And you have it all along. You end up with people who are really engaged and who are bringing their best selves to work. And it shows in the quality of what you're able to accomplish. So for me, like the fact that it's fun. I mean, I love that you're doing this work to make the imaginative space for young people to see, like, or even some kind of older people to see, you know, what they might want to do and be when they grow up. And, you know, truly, I think that technology, tech, and engineering in particular sometimes do get that bad boiler room rap-on that you were talking about. It's not like that at all. You know, it's really fun.
I agree. Anyone else before we move on? Awesome. Okay. Well, Beth touched on it a little bit, but before we kind of move on, I'd like to talk about, you know, obstacles and what it takes to keep women in STEM. But let me maybe pause here and summarize a little bit of what I've heard. So the first point so far that we've heard today, if you are a woman in our audience and you are thinking about going into STEM, or you're in STEM and aren't sure, what I want to say to you is just hearing this panel, have confidence, right? While you may not see role models in your everyday, and they're there. And, you know, as Lisa talked about, right, the world needs more women in STEM, and you could be extremely successful in this field. The second point, my takeaway here is, if you believe this is important to the world, right? And just so many great perspectives on that so far, and you want to help with this movement, I would say, wow, just Beth, so many of the things you said, you know, get involved. I mean, you guys are so involved in helping with the movement, mentoring women. And really what I learned is just, we need to start talking to young women as early as elementary school and building their confidence to go into STEM at a young age, right? I would say, like, encourage your daughters, your nieces who gravitate towards science to help them picture themselves in careers in STEM and stick with it. And as Margaret said, right, there's a lot of different careers in STEM, and it's fun. It's not just coding in a dark room, but so great.
I'll note that I don't think it's only for the young and that we only need to work on the pipeline for the future. I think that we need to also focus on the opportunities that we have for today, as Lisa was talking about with like reentry programs. Like, at every level, there are interesting things for people to be doing in STEM, and to be thoughtful about those opportunities. I mean, I think part of the reason women in particular get turned off is because they don't see women in positions of authority and power making decisions. And they're like, well, if I'm not going to be able to run anything, or if I'm never going to be able to advance to the highest ranks, why would I choose this career over doing something else? Like, if I'm never going to get to be in the boardroom, if I'm never going to get to run, a team or, a project, like, why would I want this particular career? It seems like not worth it, or not likely to have a positive outcome. And then that sense of, that fear of failure, that fear of, not being able to achieve anything can kick in. I think that is not the case anymore. And it's good that it's not the case anymore, but it's still more rare than any of us can sort of mathematically explain. Like, I don't know all the reasons, I don't know all the causes, but I do think that it's important to have some of those. I would hesitate to call it, me a role model, maybe Beth, maybe Lisa, maybe Kristen can be a role model. Like, it's very, it opens up the imaginative possibilities for them to see that, Dion can run a whole thing. She can be the chief customer officer, in her life and her career. And that's a really positive outcome.
I also want to add that somehow we in engineering have done the discipline a disservice by not treating it on par with professions like law and medicine. When you enter into law and medicine, you almost take an oath that you'll be a lifelong learner, right? You'll never know everything about the discipline, and diseases change and situations change and public health changes, as we've just witnessed over the last 2 years. And so what docs do is that they're always very humbled about researching and staying up on things. Well, you know what? Engineering is the same thing. So I don't know why there's this perception, okay, I'm going to get out of UC Berkeley or Stanford or Harvard and I'm checking the box, and then, I'm going into engineering and it's going to be like a job, because it's not like that. I will tell you that we retool and retrain our engineers every 2 years, no matter who you are. Doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man. And so for women who, as Margaret was saying, are older and perhaps, you came out of your life as a graphic artist and you've never thought about being a UX person. Believe it or not, you're closer to being a UX person than a engineer who was a full stack developer who's getting trained to be a UX person. You can always be tooled and trained in the newest techniques, tools, Scrum, all of that. And so somehow I think that my call to action in this panel is the technology leaders, the companies have to do a far better job of making women candidates understand that come, if you have aptitude, if you have curiosity, if you are a lifelong learner, we'll train you. We will institutionalize that training in our companies. And Cisco has done a great job of that. I got to tell you, my friend runs HR at Cisco, and for them, they're never satisfied. They're always training their people. And I just think we need a little bit more of that from a cultural perspective in the industry.
The other thing I'd love to add, I think, as we look at women and other diversity metrics, you will often hear, unfortunately, in the development realm and track, oh, we would love to hire a woman, but there's just not enough in the pipeline. You can have a lot of excuses. And so I remember one gentleman who's been a CEO and a board member of many companies now saying, you have to be intentional. If you want to hire a woman, there is no excuse you can hire a woman for that role. If you would like to hire this diversity class of people, there is no reason, but you have to be intentional. And so I think we as leaders too have to continue to drive that home, that there should be no excuses here, that it's absolutely possible, but you have to be intentional in what you do. And it's great to see companies embracing, like panels for recruiting for a position must show diversity in the candidates before you make a hire decision, looking at job specs to make sure they're not gender targeted, but gender neutral. There's just some great things that are coming, but we as leaders have to really push this and take away some of the excuses, I think, that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I would add to that, taking away the college degree requirements for job descriptions is another way to make it more open to everybody. We're looking at that as well, because it's so intimidating when you look at a job description and you want to do something different with your life and you go, oh my God, I don't have any of these. What am I going to do? I can't do this. And you're next. But if you're a hiring manager, you can be really creative, and you can look at everybody and say, this person has these qualities that I need for this job, and I can teach them the skills. And having that open mind is really how you get the diversity and how you develop it as well.
Yeah, and a lot of this obviously comes down to just all the biases that exist, right? For all of us as well on this panel, right? Things that we've had to overcome and think about. I mean, let's talk about what are some of the other obstacles we see, right? What for a woman working in tech, but also just love to hear any of your own stories with respect to your own careers. What obstacles have you guys run into?
I think
Maybe
one obstacle
Kristen.
that, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, I think one
Yeah,
obstacle that I think we all run into is being the only in the room. And I think women are going to continue to run into that for a while, being only on average, depending on who you look at, 27% of the tech field, right? Even though we're 50% of the population. So, when you're in a meeting and you're the only woman, there are times where it's possible that you're interrupted, you're spoken over, you're ignored, not on purpose, just because it's a feeding frenzy and that's what happens, right? But there's a way to deal with that insofar as you talk to one of your coworkers or your colleagues before the meeting and you say, hey, look, last time I tried to get my point across, I kind of got talked over. Do you think that if you see that happening, you could kind of help me out and just be like, hey, let's stop and let Kristen say something, right? Just give me a hand. And they'll be like, oh, okay, because they don't know what's happening either, right? Now you've educated that person that this thing is going on. You have a buddy in the meeting that can help you out if you need it. And you don't have to fight as hard to get your point across, because there are a lot of times, I don't know about you ladies, but there have been times I've been in meetings and I just get tired of fighting and trying to get my voice heard, and I just quit. I'm just like, forget it. You know what? Y'all can just go down that path and good luck with that, because I don't even want to talk anymore. So instead of doing that, you have to get creative. But I think that's a big obstacle, is just being the only. It's tough. You got to be creative and you got to be strong.
There's
Kristen, I hate hearing that story. That's heartbreaking. We need your voice. Okay. So when you feel that way, remember us, and we're spurring you on and saying, keep talking. I have kind of a fun fact here. I'm a mom, right? I've got 2 teenage boys. And so they have taught me so much in terms of being the only one, because what I've learned from them, just as my 6th grade girls that I've talked with you about in math, my teenage boys are gamers. And what I've seen, and of course, gaming interaction is going to be the future of how people use technology. So I study it very closely. And, when a girl roams into a game, it's not nefarious. It's not like, the boys say, oh, we're going to shut her out or anything like that. But what it is they just don't know what to make of her. she's kind of like, she's roaming in this game, and they're like, well, is she the sister? Is she the, the Black Widow warrior? Is she, what's her role in this game? And the boys are kind of, constantly trying to place her. And it was at that moment that I realized, oh my gosh, that's what happens to me when I walk in a boardroom. It's like, you might as well see all the other board members as their gamers, right? And I just walked into the game. And so now they're all trying to place me. And so what my sons taught me is state your purpose. Your role is you're in there. You are a member of this game. You are highly additive in this game. And I think you kind of need to be sure-footed. Bring a different point of view. Please, we're asking you to. As board members, we always ask you to. And so, so far, my male colleagues, they've been really supportive of that. So I just a kind of an anecdote to share to everybody who thinks that they shouldn't be in the boardroom. You should be in the boardroom. We need you there.
Margaret, Beth, do you have anything to add?
Well, I am very kind of intrigued by all these strategies for erasing the discount from our voices. Right. So like, you find an ally, you state your purpose, these things are like, let us stop discounting, right, the contributions of or potential contributions of people in the room. And I saw some comments that are, kind of speak to that as well. But obstacle wise, which is I think where you were going with some of this, Dion, I would say that in terms of encouraging like the participation of a very diverse set of people in the workforce, we have to show that it's possible and it's desirable through all the phases of life, right? Whether you are young or whether you are mid-career or, whether you are, in a different phase of things, it has to be possible in all of these different phases of life to do it. And I do think that we discourage young women in particular because there are some careers where they feel like their life choices, whether it's to become a parent or, simply not to work 60 hours a week or to be on the road all the time or whatever it is, like it's not going to be possible to live the life they want to live. And it's not going to be possible to achieve the kind of success they want to achieve if those are required. And I don't see any reason why the work as we used to do it yesterday has to be the work as we do it next time around. I don't see that at all. I think we're very creative about how to get work done and get, add value, all of us as individual people. And I see some policies at really forward thinking technology companies in particular as being very supportive of women in all the phases of their life, including and especially child rearing and elder care. Like these are things that are likely to affect you in a career that spans, age 21 to age 71 or whatever it is we all decide to retire. So I've seen some very forward thinking policies created and used, for instance, 6-month parental leave, and it applies to both genders. And it's really encouraged that you take it, normalizes the idea that people may become parents at some point during their work lives. And that's okay. Doesn't matter whether you're male or female. It's really a wonderful, even-handed way to deal with things. And I think a lot of the next frontier will come around, do you have a moment in your life where for a health reason or for an elder care reason, you need to work 4 days a week, or you need to work from a different place for a quarter or a year? These are going to be normal things. And the forward-thinking employers are going to develop really good policies around how their workforce takes advantage of them and stays engaged and productive and, progressing their own careers. So we can be supporters of those, designers of those, supporters of those, and frankly, the decision makers on those. The older I get, it's a distinct pleasure, actually, to be able to influence those things.
The one thing I would add is, I know there's a little bit of comment, is there is a lot, the bias in the environment that exists is there. And the only other constructive advice I would give is, on my background, I've got women at Plan View. So starting to talk about and educate more the entire employee base that you're working with around. So when we started Women at Plan View, part of the goal was to
get people to be aware of these biases and how they can be supportive of women in their professional development. And we have like 30% of our attendees of our events are men, and we want to be inclusive. So we have to step up and look for opportunities to create education and awareness. And you're starting to see that with other diversity dimension with, Black and Indigenous people of color. There's a lot of biases there that are innate in people talking about it, educating, what do we do to be allies? And so those are opportunities as well, but those biases are going to be some obstacles that can be perceived as in your way. The only other obstacle I can say is look inside yourself. Sometimes I look back on my career, I was an obstacle because I didn't feel like I was qualified, capable. I shouldn't sit at the table, shouldn't speak up. And so sometimes our own internal voices can be our own obstacles in our journey as well, and how to elevate ourselves. So being aware of that and help, reaching out to get help from others, how to know you are in, as Lisa said, you are in that boardroom and you have a purpose and you have a role, and you just need sometimes that encouragement and voice to tell you I'm here for a purpose, and then you unlock your potential of what you can add value to in that role. So
yeah, I mean, I think if I were to summarize, one, I mean, I've done probably 5, 6 of these panels over the last 5 years, and what's good is it's changed, meaning you hear a lot more of these programs, Beth, that did not exist 5 years ago, but we have a long way to go, right? We clearly have to move faster, and we have a long way to go. But one is, right, we can all take a stand and help and make this better, right? We can get more involved. We can help people in meetings. We can do more, right? But it's encouraging that there's a lot, right, Margaret, a lot of programs out there. It's going to look different. So we've got to make sure women who are entering this field understand that they will be able to have families, they can get married, and they can get into the boardroom, right? And, I would just say, right, we need to take this conversation further even after this is what do we do next, right? How do we create more education and awareness in the companies we work in the companies we influence, and in the people we work with and our peers every day, right? So love it. Thank you guys. So I'd like to shift the conversation a bit toward just letting the audience picture what is success in this field, right? So we've talked a lot about the why, we've talked about how to get women into STEM, we've talked about how to keep people in STEM. And now I think it'd be good for, people to hear, I mean, you are all very successful. So I'll start with a little bit of a personal question, humility not required at all, please, although you were all very, very humble. So we'll see how this goes. But what is one superpower that has gotten you to where you are today? And I'd love for everyone to answer it if possible. So who wants to start? Kristen, you want to kick us off here?
Sure. For me, I think it's been, pardon me, tenacity, just not giving up when I'm going back to my previous point, not heard the first time or the 5th time. Because if I know if my idea will work, if it's the right thing to do, then I'll change my strategy to get support as many times as I have to get it done, to get done what I want to accomplish. And I think tenacity also includes the ability to know when to give up in the moment to achieve your long-term goals. It doesn't mean stubbornly plowing through everything in front of you. It means being smart and strategic about how you get it done, even if it means going away and then coming back. So I think tenacity is a big, it was big help in my world for me, for sure.
Great. Margaret?
I would definitely say it is intellectual curiosity. Most things are interesting when you know enough about them. And if you can find interesting problems to engage on and work on and unpack, then your work's always kind of entertaining. And, unless you're, born a princess, you're probably going to work. So you should probably figure out something that rewards you to do and that pays you well enough to do what you want to do with your life. I actually saw a really good question in the chat. As a dad in tech, I find it difficult to get my daughters to consider a career in tech. Any strategies to consider that might help? I have teenage daughters, and it is. I mean, first of all, there's just the engaging them in doing anything other than watching TikTok, which is like kind of a challenge, right? But what I often do actually is talk about what I do at work, and I make it interesting for them. So, hey, did you know that, what I do powers Snapchat? What I do powers Apple. What I do powers Crunchyroll, on which you'd like to watch anime clips. Wait, how does that work, Mom? How does that, what do you mean that these things that you work on have any relevance to, my consumer universe? And can you explain that to me? That has definitely been a superpower of mine, the curiosity. And I think it is helping, I don't know what the outcome will be. I think it is helping my own kids to see that there's really interesting things to do in tech.
Great. Beth?
Sure. I reflect on and I think courage, that I would not be where I am today or have had the blessings I have without having had courage and being bold and brave in a lot of circumstances. I recall early in my career, what was going on as I entered into a leadership role. Man, I think differently. Why do I think differently? So embracing, and I had to have courage to say, that's okay. Not listening to that inner voice of, well, maybe I shouldn't say anything, to absolutely, you have to say something. And having the courage on 2 occasions when I didn't report to the CEO, as lower in the organization, to just go into their office and share some perspective and offer advice. That took courage. And one was a problem. It was a problem that my peers are like, yeah, this particular executive is kind of being abusive and bullying. And I'm like, well, why has nobody met with him and said anything? Well, we're afraid we're going to get fired. It's like, you have to have courage. I'm like, well, I don't want to be here if that's the way we're going to be treated. So those are inflection points where, you just have to take some courageous steps, and you have to be brave and bold. And it's going to be against your grain sometimes of what feels comfortable versus what you have passion, and it's just the right thing to do. It's just a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Lisa, any thoughts?
So I think from a superpower perspective, I would say I have a deep love of scaling for innovation, not for scaling for efficiency. So, I think that the Industrial Revolution in the last 100 years have all been about scaling for efficiency, but now we are going to have to scale for innovation. And again, if you just look at the last 2 years, to have cyber resiliency, which is what Sumo is all about, around critical infrastructure. If you think about, the problem that I have where 800 people in the world understand anything about quantum computing, and I've got to make that, billions of people. So I've got that problem of how I'm going to figure out to retrain all these engineers to do things differently. And then you think about also where we need to go with, taking control of our own economy and lives around banking and systems. All of that is going to require that we build things that have not been built before. So there's no blueprint for it. And so what I want to try to do now that I'm kind of in this giving back part of career, right, the latter part of career, is to teach people to bring together Black Ops teams where they're building things and doing things that they've never done before, and they're comfortable with it. And you're bringing a whole lot of different people. I mean, kind of tethering this back to women, I'll leave you with this. One of my favorite techniques when I'm hiring is I'll take a primitive puzzle, I'll just put it on the table and I just won't say anything. Now, a lot of the men always believe that I am judging them on how fast they solve the puzzle. I'm not judging that at all, right? What I'm judging is, are you talking about how you're solving the puzzle while you're solving the puzzle? Because if you talk about how you're doing it, I know you're going to collaborate really well with other PhDs. When you bring 6 PhDs together, it's going to be all about the collaboration. It's not about what you know. It's all about the soft skills. And so I think I want to see more companies embrace the innovation side of the equation. And I'd like to see that at the board too, because chapter 1, I can't remember who said it, but somebody made a really insightful comment. What we knew that got us to chapter 1 is certainly not what is going to get us through chapter 2. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think I'm going to borrow that as a new interview tactic, Lisa. It's interesting.
Well, a lot of times I didn't hire the person who solved the puzzle the fastest, but I did hire the person who was the most engaging about, their process, even if, hey, it wasn't an approach I would have taken. A lot of times those people have been members on my team, and I have worked with them many times thereover during the years.
Yeah, I love it. Good. So in interest of time, I think let's shift to the chat, the Q&A. That's because we've had several questions come up. So why don't we do that? So the first one we have here is, what's the one thing you wish you would have known when you started your career in tech? Any volunteers?
I'll go first. The one thing I wish I would have known is that there is so much help out there, and people are so willing to help you if you just ask. That was hard for me. I didn't know that. I kind of forged my own way wherever I went. I didn't have parents who graduated from college. My grandfather was a mechanic. My other grandfather was an upholsterer. I was the first one to graduate from college. So I was kind of in the corporate world by myself without a lot of help. And I thought I didn't have a lot of help, but as I grew in my career, I realized, wow, if you just ask, people will help. They're more than willing to help. They're more than willing to share their hard lessons so you can avoid them. So I think that would be a big, I would ask people just to really, especially women, to ask for help. It's hard. And I just want to acknowledge Carmen's comment in the window about being a Black woman and how especially harder it is for Black women as well. You just got to ask for help. And, and once you get over, for me, how hard it was at first and how scared I was to ask for help because I thought they'd think I was weak or stupid. No, it's not like that at all. They're all usually people are very gracious and kind and just want to help you. So I would say there's much more help than you think there is.
Anyone else want to take a stab at answers?
I would add to that, maybe prior to starting my career, there are a lot of things kind of maybe others are orchestrating and laying out in front of you opportunities or guiding you along the way. And there was a point in my career I realized I have to raise my hand. Don't sit there and wait for someone to go, hey, Beth, I think you would be really good in this. How about this role? It's not going to happen. And at one point in my career, I was watching all the guys around me because I was the only female at that level, just passing me, going, I'll do it. Give me that. I can do anything. And I was like, why am I standing here still letting everybody pass me? It's you got to raise your hand sometimes and put yourself out there. That it's not going to happen. Waiting for someone to approach you about that is not the stance. And so that was a big mind shift for me.
Listen, good. So another great question here. What advice would you give, to your point, about new female leaders in STEM who are managing a team today to create a more equal playing field, especially as they're learning to find their own voice?
Probably that, and I can't take credit for this. The amazing Kathy Banco, who not only is a fantastic board member, but she's also been a friend of mine for over 30 years. That, your career is just not a ladder. No one's is. That you're not going to get on this path and it's going to be this linear path going forward. It's going to be zigzaggy and you're going to sidestep sometimes, and you're going to take moves that are controversial and they end up being the right move. And, you're going to find your own groove. And I guess I would probably say, come to your career and be like a jazz musician. Think about improvisation, because real magic will happen, if you stress the creativity. By the way, selfishly, as a future consumer of your product, because I'm a technologist, your product's going to be better too. It's going to be a lot more fun, and I'm going to want to use it, if you have that attitude.
Dion, I was taking a moment to mull over that question around, when you are a female leader, you are managing a team. What do you do to encourage the right kind of attitude of help, right? Or equality, learning inside your team. And I was thinking about what is working for me today, right? What's working for me today, running, Prod Engine Armory. Well, the first answer is that really I have an amazing VPE who is doing a great job with it. But a couple of the very specific techniques that we use are whenever a new person gets onto their particular Scrum team, we pair them and we rotate the pairing. Once you have, whether you're bringing a new person on or not, you want them to learn to work collaboratively and to learn from all of the other engineers that are there. It doesn't matter whether it's a male, a female, a US national, Costa Rican national, a Croatian national, it doesn't matter who they are. You put them in a situation where they're pairing deeply, like for a solid week with someone. They can establish both a personal relationship and some professional respect and some kind of, exchange there. And then that begins to be like a lubricant for future workplace interactions in a way that it never is if you're isolated and you never get any of that help, Kristen, right? So now you've got someone they've been on the team for 4 weeks. They've paired deeply with 4 people on the team over the course of those 4 weeks, and now they're integrated into the team. And you have broken down a lot of barriers that might have existed. And I don't mean the kind of rigorous pairing you do in a formal agile practice, but it's like, hey, Margaret and Kristen are going to work together, and Kristen is going to show Margaret how, our eventing system works, and they're going to solve a problem together over the course of this week. And then they'll put it down, and then Margaret will move on to working with Beth. Beth's going to teach her something or show her how something works. And, so these are the kinds of techniques that really, I think, establish new patterns of interaction between people that make for good teams over time. I think that was the question that you were asking about. Okay.
Yeah, techniques to help build a more inclusive environment, really, as a leader. I love that, Margaret. Thank you. Maybe last question.
I tend to.
Oh, no,
I'm sorry, Dion. I just wanted to piggyback on that as well. In addition to pairing, I also find that pushing my team to do things they're not comfortable with, I have greater confidence in their skills than they do. Being that kind of leader helps a lot too. I do not ever let them get comfortable and do the same thing for a very long time. I'm always pushing them. Hey, what about this? Hey, what about that? Go learn how to do this. Go do that. So I'm always pushing them, and I'm always the biggest cheerleader. I always have more confidence in them than they do a lot of times. And if they come to me with, I want to do this, I'm like, go for it. Do it. Tell me what I can do to help you. So I think pushing them out of their comfort zone and is also really good, not only for the team, but for them personally and professionally.
The other thing I would add to this great insight is if you are observing in the team and the collaboration that an individual is very quiet and not maybe contributing, is encouraging them, Margaret, I would love your perspective on this, encouraging people to have that voice. And it's, again, they're not comfortable for whatever reason, maybe saying, and it also raises visibility that I care about Margaret's voice in this decision and collaboration, and not just the ones who like to talk in the room and certainly are very opinionated. So you have to be conscious as a leader and just make sure that you're kind of drawing them out in that kind of environment.
It's
Yeah,
one of the best gifts of
Yeah.
the Zooms. And there have been a lot of not awesome parts about doing everything by Zoom for the last year now. One of the best parts is that you can be extraordinarily mindful of, I am really going to go around the room and I am really going to pull every voice into this. And I am not going to let people not participate, because some of the dynamics that you would have in a less digital setting are minimized through remote participation. Now, that's a good practice just in the room. And in a hybrid setting, it's extremely important, because you get a couple of people in the room and a couple of people on, remote, their sound is hard, it's coming off mute. So being extremely thoughtful about how you get participation from everyone in any given format it's extremely good tradecraft, and it's extremely good team building.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think that is actually the number one thing that I found as a leader, with women and men, by the way. This happens to, they're just not comfortable. They've said, Dean, we're not comfortable talking in these types of group meetings. And so we actually did some personality profile. There's a lot out there. I like Gatehouse Insights myself, and you can actually really help profile each other and talk about it, so we know who's who and who aren't comfortable talking in those settings, and making sure we give everyone a voice in these meetings. It's pretty powerful and important. So,
Well, and I guess I'll conclude by saying that, failing fast is really important, particularly if you are building product. And again, we're talking about STEM, so we're talking about engineering. And I think what I've witnessed in teams is the clam up factor, even if the subject matter is really hard, that goes away quickly when the leadership and the team set the pace that you're looking to fail fast. You need ideation constantly. You need people to say, well, what if, let's try this. We haven't tried that before, and if you're fostering that culture, you will find that no matter who you are, right? Even if you're, irrespective of gender, if you're shyer or you're less likely to contribute to the conversation, that goes away pretty quickly, because you see people out there taking risks and taking chances. And so I think that's super important on so many levels.
yeah. Love it, Lisa. Thank you. So we're coming up on time. Maybe Melissa will do a wrap and
Yeah.
last slide.
So
thank you.
Thank you everyone for attending. This has been an amazing conversation. I'm so excited, and all these panelists have been awesome. So thank you for joining us so early. One of the things that we like to do at Sumo Logic is give back. There's a number of ways that we're doing it at Illuminate. So if you're attending and you go to the social impact button area, there's charities you can give to. But for Women of Sumo, we like to try to do something in that vein. So this year, we Beth, who is on our panel this morning, she has a Women in Engineering scholarship through her alma mater at the University of Kentucky. And we want to make you aware of this. If you're interested in it, you can just click your phone up to the QR code and it'll take you right to the website. You can also reach out to Beth directly to get directions on donating. Sumo Logic will also be making a donation on her behalf for that scholarship. So we encourage you to do that.
I did it during the time you were talking, Melissa.
Oh, yay.
It was that fast.
Thank you, Margaret. This has been, I can't emphasize in all of these topics, we really haven't talked about, if you have the opportunity to help with financial, with the pandemic and everything that's going on, there's this, all students, regardless, are really in need of help. But this is just it's one of my passions and just privilege to be able to set up a scholarship fund that will help eliminate the reason for not being able to pursue a computer science degree for young women by providing that financial blessing. So thank you for offering this opportunity and thank you, Sumo, for making a gift as well.
I love
We're
it.
excited to do it.
Thank you. So maybe I'll just do a quick wrap. So first, thank you, all of you, the panelists, for being here with us at Illuminate, sharing your experiences and perspectives. Melissa and David, by the way, you guys are awesome. You did so much organizing us, so really appreciate you. Kind of if I kind of reflect on this topic, I mean, the discussion around diversity and inclusion and women in tech, it's so important now more than ever, right? I mean, I'm on a journey. I've learned so much today. And, though we've made this Women of Sumo gathering a part of every Illuminate conference, the discussion today really impressed upon me the urgency for us all to maintain an ongoing conversation, not just about the importance of women in tech, but really shining a light on where we're having success in overcoming challenges and creating these outcomes, right, that we all want. So just, looking forward to keeping this conversation going with all of you well after Illuminate ends today. And again, thanks for being here, and thanks to all of you out there for spending an hour with us this morning. And just a reminder that Ramin's keynote starts in 15 minutes. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.